The snow fell heavier than ever before across the north, blanketing Winterfell in silence. Jon stood by the ancient heart tree, his breath visible in the cold air, ghost beside him. The words rang in his mind over and over. You are Aegon. Targaryen, true heir to the Iron Throne. But the truth didn't bring clarity, only fire and frost battling inside him. Then a raven arrived. Its seal bore the direwolf of House Stark. The message was brief but impossible. Meet me at Moat Cailin, NES. Jon read it 5 times. Ned Stark was dead, wasn't he? When Jon reached Moat Cailin, the ruined fortress echoed with memories of war and blood. But in the shadows of the northern tower, a figure emerged, older, grizzled yet unmistakable. The honor in his eyes hadn't changed. Jon's breath caught. Father, he whispered, voice shaking. Ned stepped forward, eyes full of pain and purpose. Not by name anymore, Jon, but yes, it's me. And in that moment the world shifted. Direct address. Wait, what? Ned Stark is alive? How? Why? This changes everything. And trust me, what happens next will break your brain. Ned explained what truly happened at the Sept of Baelor. Varys had spared him, a last act of defiance against chaos. He was smuggled out, replaced by a condemned criminal made to resemble him. Varys believed war would erupt, and a living Ned. Stark could become a tool if needed, but Varys underestimated the North's fury. Ned had been hidden, watched and moved through shadows, and now, with whispers of Jon's birthright spreading, the Spider had sent word. Westeros was crumbling, and it needed something new, or someone old. Jon's jaw clenched. You want me to be king? Ned looked him dead in the eye. No. I want us to take the throne together, Targaryen and Stark, fire and ice. The realm needs both. For a moment, Jon said nothing. He didn't want power, but power didn't care what he wanted. And then he said the words that would echo in history. Then we do it our way, with honor. Elsewhere in King's Landing, Daenerys' dragons circled the Red Keep like vultures over a dying kingdom. After torching the city, she ruled with fire and fear. Tyrion sat in a cold cell, hands shaking, knowing the realm had traded one tyrant for another. The people mourned in silence. The Iron Throne was nothing more than twisted metal and charred bones. Yet the wars weren't over, not by a long shot. Direct address? Okay. Pause. If you thought Daenerys going mad was the end, imagine what happens when Jon Snow comes back, with Ned Stark at his side. And dragons, oh, they're going to have to choose. Word spread like wildfire. From the Riverlands to Dorne, from Old Town to the Vale, Ned Stark lived. And with him, a rightful heir, Aegon Targaryen, the bastard of Winterfell, no more. The North rallied instantly. Sansa, torn between relief and suspicion, welcomed Ned with tears and steel. Arya returned from her voyage west to find her family whole again, and the world completely different. Bran watched everything. But they weren't the only ones listening. Cersei Lannister, hiding in the shadows after her own fall, heard whispers too. If Ned Stark lived, her crimes and her children's paternity could all come back to haunt her. She would not stay silent. From the eastern coast, she reached out to the Golden Company once more, offering gold and revenge to any who would march against the North. Direct address. And just like that, it's not just a claim to the throne, it's a war on every side. Exiled queens, fallen lions, and a realm too broken to choose. Tensions mounted fast. Daenerys refused to acknowledge Jon's claim. To her, he had bent the knee and betrayed her. Worse, he was now joined by the man she blamed for all her losses, Ned Stark. It was treason, and treason would burn. But Jon knew better than to march blindly. He sought alliances, reaching out to old friends and enemies alike. Gendry in Storm's End, Yara Greyjoy in the Iron Islands, even Samwell in Old Town, who now held records proving Jon's birth. The truth was on their side, but truth was fragile in Westeros. Ned, meanwhile, returned to politics with caution and fury. He knew what it was to trust too easily. He had lost his family for it. Now he worked behind the scenes, sowing alliances through honor, and sometimes necessary deception. Littlefinger's ghost haunted every corner of this new game. The mistake of mercy would not be repeated. In the Reach, the surviving Tyrell, loyalists rose again, disillusioned by Daenerys' massacre. They backed Jon. Better the wolf than the dragon, they said, but dragons don't wait for votes. Direct address. Hold up. Remember that last time someone thought they could outmaneuver a dragon? Yeah, ask Varys how that turned out. This is about to get savage. Rhaegal, the dragon Jon once rode, sensed his return. And that connection didn't fade. On a fog-covered night near the ruins of Dragonstone, Rhaegal descended, not as a weapon, but as a brother in fire. Daenerys saw it all from the sky, atop Drogon. She knew in that moment she was no longer the only dragon left. It was personal now. Meanwhile, Tyrion, released in secret by Davos, fled north. He carried news. Daenerys planned to fly north and end the rebellion before it began. Burn Winterfell. End the Starks for good. And this time, she wouldn't hesitate. Jon stood before the battlements, Ghost at his side, Rhaegal behind him, and the people of the north watching. She's coming, he said quietly. Then let her come, Ned replied, standing with him. We won't kneel. Not again. And as the drums of war echoed through the frost-bitten hills, father and son stood united, not as lords, not as kings, but as the last hope of a realm shattered by fire. Snow lashed the walls of Winterfell as the sky darkened. The air carried a sharpness it hadn't held since the long night, but this was no White Walker storm. It was dragonborn. High above, Drogon's silhouette broke through the clouds, like death itself. Behind him, Daenerys Targaryen rode in silence, her eyes locked on the castle she once called ally. No more diplomacy, no more mercy. They had betrayed her, and now they would burn for it. From the battlements, Arya watched with narrowed eyes, clutching her blade. Beside her, Sansa stood wrapped in wolf fur, face pale but unmoved. She's really coming, Sansa whispered. Arya didn't answer. She didn't need to. Jon Snow stood beneath the godswood, armored in black and silver, Rhaegal pacing behind him. His heart thundered, not with fear, but dread. He'd killed for peace, bled for honor, died for the realm. And yet, here he was, again, choosing between family and war. Ned approached silently, placing a hand on Jon's shoulder. We stand, or we fall together. We can't undo what's been done, but we can decide what comes next. Direct address. Okay, deep breath, dragon versus dragon, family versus family, and guess what? Someone's not making it out alive. Davos stormed into the courtyard. She's half a league out, flying low. Fast? Arya vanished instantly, her face unreadable. Sansa turned to Jon. You still love her? He didn't answer, didn't blink. It doesn't matter anymore. The gates were barred, the archers positioned, and the Stark banners flapped, in the wind like defiant ghosts. As Drogon screamed from above, fire crashed against the outer walls, blasting stone into dust. Winterfell shook, but it held. The north always held. Rhaegal rose with a roar, leaping into the stormy sky. Jon mounted without hesitation. He didn't need to tame the dragon. He was part of it. In moments, he was airborne, steel-drawn, cloak, whipping in the wind. Above the battlefield, the two dragons met in a savage collision. Fire and fang scream and flame. From the ground, the north watched with mouths agape. Arya moved like shadow, slipping behind broken towers, dodging falling stone. She wasn't aiming for Daenerys. Not yet. She was waiting, watching, measuring. The moment. Direct address. Wait. Arya's not just watching, she's hunting. And if you think she won't do what Jon won't, just remember the Night King. Inside the chaos, Ned Stark moved like a general once more. He directed defenses, pulled the wounded to safety, rallied bannermen too young to remember Robert's rebellion. This wasn't just survival. This was legacy. He had failed to protect his family once. He wouldn't again. Above, Jon and Daenerys circled each other in the skies, their dragons battered and bloodied. Rhaegal snapped at Drogon's wing, tearing a chunk free, but Drogon retaliated with fire so hot the snow below turned to steam. They soared and crashed, danced and roared, not just beasts but symbols of a dying world. Suddenly Jon locked eyes with Daenerys. Through the smoke and wind, he saw her fury, her grief, her madness, and maybe something else. But the pause cost him. Drogon slammed Rhaegal sideways, sending them spiraling. Jon held on tight, swearing under his breath. They crashed hard into the courtyard, stone exploding around them. Rhaegal shrieked, wounded. Jon rolled off, dazed but alive. Daenerys landed moments later, stepping off Drogon like a goddess of wrath. Her hair whipped around her face, her eyes locked on Jon. "You chose them," she spat. "I chose peace," he said, sword still drawn. She laughed bitterly. "Then why are we at war?" Direct address, and here it is, the moment we've all been waiting for, Jon versus Daenerys. And someone's going to break, Drogon growled, sensing his mother's rage. Rhaegal limped too, shield Jon, blood oozing from his flank. The tension crackled. Then steel rang Arya. She moved like lightning from behind the rubble, Valyrian dagger aimed straight for Daenerys' back. But Daenerys turned, catching a glimpse just in time. Fire erupted. Arya flipped away, landing hard, singed but alive. Jon screamed, "Stop!" stepping between them. Daenerys didn't flinch. "They made you weak, Jon, and you've become everything you swore to fight," he said low and sharp. Ned appeared behind the wall, watching, blade sheathed. He couldn't interfere. Not now. This wasn't his fight. It was Jon's, a test of his blood, his heart, his very soul. Daenerys raised her hand. Drogon growled in response. Jon stepped closer. "If you do this, there's no turning back." Her eyes flickered. For a moment, just a heartbeat, she saw him. Not Aegon, not the heir, just Jon, the man she'd loved. Her hand dropped an inch. Direct address. Is she hesitating? Oh my God, wait. What is Arya doing? Arya moved again, this time not for the kill. She tackled Jon sideways, just as fire ripped across the ground. Drogon had lost control. In his rage, he had unleashed chaos. Even Daenerys couldn't stop him. The flames consumed part of the courtyard, melting steel and stone alike. Rhaegal roared, shielding the wounded behind his wings. Ned pulled several guards to safety, but the air choked with ash. Daenerys mounted Drogon again, face torn between triumph and confusion. She flew upward, away from the battlefield, not in victory, not in defeat, but in something worse. Uncertainty. Jon stood in the center of the destruction, eyes wet, blade clenched. "She's gone," Arya said quietly. "For now," Jon replied, "but she'll return." Ned approached, hand on Jon's shoulder. "Then we must be ready, all of us." The fires of Winterfell still smoldered 3 days after Daenerys' retreat. Smoke lingered in the sky like a curse, casting long shadows across the snow-covered fields. Men and women walked among the ruins with hollow eyes, tending to the wounded and burying the dead. Jon had seen war before, but never like this, never where every drop of blood spilled felt like a wound in his own chest. In the great hall, the banners of House Stark hung torn but defiant. Jon stood at the war table with Ned, Arya, Sansa, and Davos. Every map stretched before them showed the same reality. Daenerys had pulled back to Dragonstone, but her forces weren't retreating. They were gathering, stronger, angrier. "She'll burn the realm if it doesn't kneel," Sansa said flatly, her voice void of emotion. "And she knows how to make them kneel." Jon's hand clenched into a fist. "Then we march. Not for vengeance, for the realm, for peace." Ned raised an eyebrow. "You'd take war to the south to stop war?" "I'd stop a tyrant before she becomes something worse," Jon replied. Direct address. "This is it. The North's going to war again, but this time with a dragon rider, a dead man walking and a girl who already killed death itself. You ready for this?" Arya leaned against a pillar, sharpening her blade. "We'll need more than steel. And dragons. We need names, allies, and maybe a few ghosts." Jon looked at her, unsure if she was joking. She wasn't. Word had already begun to spread beyond the north. In the Riverlands, House Tully raised its banners. In the Vale, young. Lord Robin Arryn, now oddly wise beyond his years, pledged support under Sansa's counsel. The North had risen before. This time it would bring the rest of Westeros with it, but not everyone would join willingly. In the shadowed halls of Casterly Rock, Cersei Lannister sipped wine, smiling as her spies whispered of dragons clashing above Winterfell. Her forces were broken after King's Landing's fall, but her will remained unshaken. "Let them kill each other," she murmured. "Then I'll deal with what's left." Qyburn, alive and lurking like a rat behind her throne, brought news of a darker kind. "There are remnants of the Golden Company. Disgraced, yes, but desperate men are easily bought." "And the people?" Cersei asked. "They're terrified, hungry, scattered." "Perfect," she smiled. "Fear listens." "Direct address." "Yep. You thought she was gone. Nah, Cersei's back, and she's not playing politics anymore. She's playing survival, and she's deadly when cornered." Back in the North, tensions began to rise. The question no one wanted to ask began echoing in whispers through Winterfell's halls. Who would sit the Iron Throne? Ned had no desire for it. He'd come back from the dead, metaphorically, not to rule but to set things right. Yet everywhere he walked, lords knelt. They didn't see a ghost. They saw the last true warden of the North, the man who stood tall when kingdoms fell. And Jon, he didn't want it either. But he was the heir. And worse, he was beginning to feel the weight of it. The way men looked to him, the way dragons bowed to him, the way history seemed to wait for his next step. One night, alone in the crypts, he stood before Lyanna's statue. "You died to protect a lie," he whispered, "and now I have to live with the truth." From the shadows, Ned's voice answered, "Your mother loved you more than life itself, and I lied to you because I thought it was the only way to protect you." "I was wrong." Jon turned. "Then what now? What do I become?" Ned stepped forward, placing a hand over the Targaryen sigil on Jon's chestplate. "Whatever you choose to be. Not what blood demands, but what honor requires. Direct address, oof, heavy, right? But here's the twist. Honor and victory? They don't always mix in Westeros, and Jon's about to find that out the hard way." 2 weeks later, the North began its march. Armies streamed south under direwolf banners. Arya rode ahead with scouts. Davos worked tirelessly to secure supply lines, and Sansa, she stayed behind. "Someone has to guard the North," she said, "and make sure we have a home to return to." Jon kissed her forehead before leaving. "Don't let the wolves starve," she smirked. "Don't let the dragons win." As the army crossed the neck, ravens flew from every corner of Westeros. Some brought pledges, some brought threats. One, from Old Town, brought something else entirely, a record, a document, forgotten in dust, confirming Jon's birth under legal marriage. "This proves your claim," Samwell wrote, "but it might also doom you." In Dragonstone, Daenerys read the same letter with trembling hands. "They're coming," she whispered to Grey Worm. "Let them. I have fire." But something in her voice cracked. Not fear, not anger, doubt. She had seen Jon survive things no man should. She'd seen people rally to him, even dragons. Rhaegal was flying with him now. That stung more than betrayal. It felt like fate mocking her. She stood alone in the chamber where Stannis once prayed, her hand on the stone table. The Iron Throne was gone, melted in her moment of rage. Now only the war remained. "They will never love me," she said aloud. "So let them fear me." Direct address. "Oh boy, you hear that? She's not backing down. And the next battle, it won't be fought on fields, it'll be fought in fire, and the North's about to walk right into it." As Jon's army reached the ruins of Harrenhal, they camped amid blackened stone and ancient curses. There, under moonlight, a rider approached. No sigil, no banners. Arya stopped him first, blade at his throat. The hood fell. It was Jaime Lannister, scarred, changed, silent. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "I'm here to stop her." Jon stepped forward, fury rising. "Why would we ever trust you?" Jaime looked him dead in the eyes. "Because I killed a mad king once, I can do it again." The ruins of Harrenhal echoed with the sound of marching feet and whispering ghosts. Jon stood beneath a crumbling archway. his eyes fixed on Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer, once a villain to every Stark who'd ever drawn breath, now offering his sword against the queen he'd once served. "You really expect us to trust you?" Arya asked, circling him slowly, her blade gleaming in the firelight. Jaime didn't flinch. "I expect you to listen. She's not the same woman I rode beside in King's Landing. She's worse than the Mad King ever was. She'll burn everything if we don't stop her." Davos stepped in, his voice gruff. "You say that now, after she's already scorched the capital after Winterfell nearly fell to fire. Why not say it before?" Jaime looked away, jaw clenched. "Because I was a coward. Because I believed I could change her. And because I'm tired of watching innocent people die for other people's crowns. Direct address. Hold up. The guy who pushed Bran out of a window is now the one saying, 'Stop the madness'? Oh, we are deep in the upside down now." Jon's eyes narrowed. He didn't like it. But war wasn't won by pride, it was won by using every weapon, even broken ones. "We don't have time to argue," he said. "We need to reach Dragonstone before she moves on King's Landing again. Or worse, by Old Town." Ned, watching silently from the edge of the campfire, finally spoke. "He tells the truth. The look in his eyes, I've seen it before. From men who regretted the wrong side. We'll use him." Arya stepped back, reluctantly, sheathing her blade. "But the moment he turns, I won't hesitate." Jaime gave a dry smirk. "I wouldn't expect anything less from a Stark." By dawn, the camp was in motion. Jon led the vanguard. Arya rode ahead with scouts. Davos handled logistics. Jaime rode alone, a shadow among wolves. And Ned, he prepared letters, messages. To Dorne, to the Iron Islands, to anyone who still remembered a time when kings were judged not by their name but by their mercy. Direct address. "Okay, it's all moving now. Forces gathering, enemies aligning. And there's just one problem, not everyone in Jon's camp wants him to win." In the rear guard, tension brewed. Some northern lords whispered in corners, questioning Jon's choices. A Targaryen king, marching with Lannisters, dragons. They didn't fight the Boltons and the dead to kneel again, even to one of their own. One such voice was Lord Umber's heir, a fierce, loud boy named Jarek. He'd lost his father to Daenerys' fire, and he didn't believe in peace. "They say the bastard's going to marry the Dragon Queen," he spat one night near the fires. "And when he does, it'll be her crown, not ours." Whispers turned into mutterings, mutterings into plans. Direct address. And here's where it starts to fall apart. When the enemy's at the gates is but the real betrayals behind your back. Meanwhile, Arya slipped through the night toward Dragonstone, disguised, silent. Death in a northern face. She infiltrated through sea caves, following secret paths mapped long ago by Gendry. Her mission wasn't to assassinate Daenerys, yet it was to find a weakness, an opening, a crack in the armor of flame. What she found instead was Tyrion. He'd been imprisoned beneath Dragonstone since his last defiance, bruised thinner but sharp as ever. "Arya Stark," he smirked through the bars, "has someone finally decided to end my suffering?" "I'm not here for you," she said. He tilted his head. "Then you should know. She's planning to march on Old Town, burn the Citadel, wipe the records, end the story before the truth spreads." Arya blinked. "The truth?" Tyrion nodded. "Jon's claim. His lineage. The letters from Sam. She wants to erase it all, and rule unchallenged." Arya's jaw tightened. "That's not ruling, that's rewriting history." "And in Westeros," Tyrion said with a grim smile, "rewriting history is just another path to power." Direct address. "Yeah, she's not just burning cities, she's burning the truth. If that citadel goes, Jon's claim dies with it. And you know she won't stop there." Arya vanished back into the tunnels, heart racing. Tyrion's warning had confirmed her worst fear. Daenerys wasn't planning to win. She was planning to erase every threat, and that meant Jon. Maybe even Ned. The next night, Jon's camp reached the outskirts of the King's Road. They were a week from Dragonstone. Jaime met Jon privately, under cover of night, to share a desperate plan. "She's vulnerable in the old throne room," he said. "She goes there alone, no guards, just Drogon." "Why would she leave herself open like that?" Jon asked. "Because she thinks no one would dare," Jaime replied. She thinks she's already won, Ned interrupted. That's a trap, and you know it. I know it's a chance, Jaime said. One we won't get again. Jon considered. It too risky, too perfect. But that's when Arya returned, cloaked, blood on her hands, face pale. Tyrion's alive, she said quickly. He told me everything. She's going to burn Oldtown. We have to stop her now. And then she dropped the real bomb. She's trying to kill you, Jon, before the realm learns who you really are. Direct address. Oh, damn, that's it. The line has been crossed. Jon's no longer marching to stop Daenerys. He's marching to kill her, and the cost. Oh, it's going to be brutal. Jon didn't sleep that night. He sat alone, ghost by his side, the weight of destiny pressing down like the wall itself. He'd never wanted power, never sought a crown. But now he had no choice. He drew Longclaw slowly. The blade shimmered in the firelight. She made her choice, he whispered. And in that moment, Jon Snow, the bastard of Winterfell, was gone. Aegon Targaryen marched toward Dragonstone not to bend the knee, but to end the Queen of Ashes. The waves around Dragonstone crashed like drums of war. The sky was overcast, thick with tension, as if the gods themselves were holding their breath. From the cliffs, Jon Snow looked down at the ancient stronghold, black stone, jagged towers, fire in its heart. This was where Stannis had fallen, where Daenerys had risen, and where it would all end. He stood beside Rhaegal, silent, armored in stark grey and silver. Ghost paced beside him, sensing what was to come. Behind them, Ned Stark waited in the shadows. This wasn't just an assault, it was an execution, one born not out of hatred, but necessity. We could still try to reason with her, Davos muttered, the words weak even as he spoke them. Jon didn't look back. You don't reason with wildfire. Direct address. Here we go, no more waiting. Jon's going in, not as a soldier, not as a king, but as a killer. And the only question now? Who's going to die first? Arya had already infiltrated the castle, a ghost among stone. She'd memorized every patrol, every guard shift, every hallway. The plan was brutal in its simplicity. Jon would enter through the tunnels beneath the cliffs, the same way Stannis once had, and confront Daenerys in the throne chamber. Alone. If he failed, Arya would finish what he couldn't. If both failed, the north would burn. As night fell, the sea calmed. A storm was coming, but not from the skies, from below. Jon entered the catacombs quietly, the air damp and bitter. The darkness felt alive. He moved without hesitation. Longclaw was sheathed, but his rage wasn't. Every step echoed with memory. Tyrion imprisoned here, Varys executed here, dragons born again here. Death lived in these walls. Above, Daenerys stood in the great hall, the melted iron throne. Nothing more than twisted steel and shadow loomed behind her like a ghost of power. Drogon rested nearby, breathing slowly, smoke curling from his nostrils. She stared out at the sea, waiting, not for Jon, for destiny. Direct address. Just look at her, Queen of Ashes, dragon at her side. She doesn't see what's coming. And when she does, it'll be too late. The doors opened, slowly, quietly, she turned. He stood there, cloaked, armed, silent. Jon, she breathed, not sure if it was relief or fear. You came. He said nothing. The silence was heavier than swords. You were supposed to be with me, she continued, stepping forward. Together, we could have ruled. You burned children, he said. You crucified surrendering soldiers. You threatened the citadel. That's not ruling. It's justice, she snapped. It's the only way to make the world better. No, he said, his voice low. It's the way to make the world afraid. She saw the blade at his side. Do you really think you can kill me? No, he replied. I think I have to try. Drogon stirred. His eye opened, but Arya moved faster than shadows. She dropped from the rafters, blade in hand, but Daenerys turned just in time. Drogon screamed and fire filled the chamber. Arya vanished into smoke. Jon charged. Steel rang direct address. Oh my God! Arya's downed, but not dead. Jon's in striking distance. And Drogon? He's about to lose it. You're not ready. For what's next? Daenerys fought like fire itself. She wasn't trained like Arya, not forged in war like Jon. But fury made her fast. She clawed at him, screaming, slashing with a blade she kept hidden beneath her cloak. "Traitor!" she howled. "Queenslayer!" he whispered. Their blades locked, and for a moment they froze face to face, breath mixing in the smoke. Then Drogon lunged. A blast of flame erupted across the chamber. Jon dove behind a pillar, the heat blistering his skin. Arya rolled beneath the debris, coughing, bleeding, but alive. Then everything stopped. Rhaegal roared from outside. He crashed through the wall of the throne room in a storm of wings and fire. Drogon met him mid-air, teeth and claw colliding, like gods at war. The chamber shook, stone cracked. Pillars fell. Jon moved. He ran straight toward Daenerys, but not with rage, not with hatred, but with sorrow. She turned too late. The blade pierced her heart. Her eyes widened, mouth opened. No scream, just breath. Then nothing. She collapsed. Into his arms. Jon held her there. The woman he'd loved. The woman he'd lost. The woman he'd killed. "I'm sorry," he whispered, eyes wet. But Drogon saw and Drogon screamed. Direct address. He did it. He actually did it. Jon just killed Daenerys, but now Drogon's looking at him like he just murdered the world. The dragon didn't attack. Not yet. He looked at Jon, then at Daenerys, then at the throne behind them, and in one final roar, Drogon unleashed his fury on the Iron Throne itself. Flames devoured it. Steel melted like wax. Power turned to ash. Then, wings wide, Drogon took Daenerys' body in his claws and vanished into the sky. Gone, just like that. Silence followed. Arya limped toward Jon, coughing, burned. "It's over," she said. Jon didn't answer. He looked at his hands. Blood. Always blood. Ned entered the room then, eyes tired, sad. "You did what I couldn't," he said. Jon looked up. "I didn't want to." "I know," Ned replied. "That's why it had to be you." Outside, the army waited, tens of thousands. Northmen, Riverlanders, men of the Vale. They saw the smoke, heard the dragons. And when Jon stepped outside and alone, face bloodied, armor scorched, they knew. It was done. Daenerys Stormborn was dead, and the realm had no ruler. Direct address. So, who rules now? Jon, the man who just killed the Queen, or Ned Stark? A dead man back from the shadows, or does the realm burn again? The bells of Dragonstone didn't ring. There was no announcement, no fanfare, no royal decree. Only silence, ash, and the weight of what Jon Snow had done. The Queen of Dragons was dead, and the realm trembled beneath the quiet. By the time that smoke cleared from the throne room, Arya and Jon stood alone beside Ned, watching the melted ruin of what had once symbolized all of Westeros's pain. No throne, no queen, just power turned to dust. "She freed the world," Jon muttered, eyes locked on the fire-scored stones, "by burning it." Arya didn't speak. Her hand rested on her dagger. Even now, even after all of it, she didn't trust peace. She never had. But peace wasn't coming, because far across the narrow sea the news of Daenerys' death spread faster than wildfire. And it didn't unite the realm. It shattered it. Direct address. You thought killing Daenerys ended the war. Nope. It lit 1,000 new ones, because when a throne disappears, then everyone thinks they deserve it. At King's Landing, chaos erupted. The city, still charred from Daenerys' last wrath, now found itself leaderless. The unsullied commander, Grey Worm, refused to accept the news. He'd buried too many brothers to see his queen die without vengeance. She was betrayed, he snarled. And I will answer that betrayal. With what army? The council asked. With the one that still obeys me, he replied. And they obey her memory. He ordered the Red Keep sealed. Tyrion, who had returned under guard, watched in horror. You're turning her into a martyr, he warned. You'll burn the world in her name, and she'll never know peace, Grey. Worm's eyes burned. She didn't want peace, she wanted justice. Direct address. Oh no, the war isn't over. It just changed names. It's no longer about who sits the throne. It's about whose vengeance wins. Back in the north, Sansa received the Raven. She read it once, then again, and again. Daenerys is dead. Jon killed her. Drogon vanished. The room spun. Part of her wanted to cry. Part of her wanted to scream. And part of her, the part that had lived through Ramsay, through Cersei, through Littlefinger, knew exactly what this meant. Jon had become the most dangerous man in Westeros. Not because he wanted the throne, but because he'd destroyed, and there were already whispers. In the Riverlands, bannermen debated swearing fealty to the Dragon Slayer. In the Vale, old knights called for a council to name a new king, and Jon's name was rising. In Dorne, where fire had once consumed their cities, the Martells declared neutrality, but their spies rode north anyway. Sansa called for her own council. "You know him," Lord Glover said. "You know he never wanted this." "I do," Sansa said coldly, "but others don't." "And what do you plan to do?" She didn't answer. She simply looked out the window toward the south and whispered, "I plan to save him from himself." Direct. Address her. Sansa's not just scared, she's planning something. And when the Lady of Winterfell makes a move, and someone always dies. Meanwhile, Jon and Ned returned to Harrenhal with what remained of their forces. Rhaegal flew above, wounded, but proud. Arya disappeared again, riding west, always the lone wolf. The camp welcomed them with silence. Some men bowed, others looked away. All of them knew. Jaime stood beside the fires, arms crossed. "So, it's done," he said. Jon nodded. "You killed a queen. What now?" "I didn't kill her for a crown." "No," Jaime said. "You killed her because you had to. That makes you worse than the ones who kill for power." Jon didn't argue, but he didn't deny it either. That night, Ned approached his son beneath the stars. "You saved the realm," he said quietly. Jon shook his head. "No, I only bought it time." "You could claim the throne," Ned said. "You're the last Targaryen, the rightful heir." "And if I do?" Jon asked. "They'll fight me or fear me, or turn me into something I'm not." Ned looked at him with tired eyes. "Then what do you want, Jon?" "I want the fighting." "To end," Jon said, and for a moment, just a moment, Ned believed it might direct address. "Okay, so what now?" "No queen, no throne, and Jon doesn't want to rule. But here comes the twist, someone else does, and they're wearing a wolf." 3 nights later, under cover of darkness, a group of riders arrived at Harrenhal, led by Sansa Stark. She dismounted, in silence, armor beneath her cloak, and entered Jon's war tent without a word. He rose to greet her. "You shouldn't be here," she stepped forward. "You left me no choice." Ned watched from the shadows, unsure whether to be proud or terrified. "You killed Daenerys," Sansa said. "You destroyed the throne. The realm has no center. And you left a power vacuum so wide that every rat in Westeros is crawling out to fill it." "I don't want the crown," Jon repeated. "I know," she said. "That's why I will take it." Silence. Jon blinked. "What?" "You've always been the sword," she said. "Let me be the mind. You gave Westeros its freedom. Let me give it its future. You want to rule?" "I have to," she said, "because if I don't, someone worse will." Direct address. "You!" Sansa Stark just declared herself a queen, not in the north, not in Winterfell, in all of Westeros. And Jon? He has a choice to make, and none of them are good. The tent fell silent. Ned stepped inside. "You're both wrong," he said. "This isn't a Game of Thrones anymore. It's a fight for survival." "Then let me fight," Sansa said. "With laws, with alliances, with stability." Jon looked between them, his father, his sister, his blood, and still, he felt alone. "I'll give you my support," he said. "But if you turn into what she became—" "I won't," Sansa promised. "I don't want fire, I want peace." Jon nodded slowly, but outside in the dark woods, a northern scout lay dead, an arrow in his back, and the man who killed him wore Stark armor, but bore the mark of a golden lion beneath it. Cersei Lannister had returned, and she'd brought death with her. Rain soaked the forests around Harrenhal, masking the footsteps of killers. No one noticed the bodies at first. A scout here, a sentry there, quiet deaths, surgical strikes, all done with precision and purpose. By the time anyone sounded the alarm, 6 were already dead. The camp stirred, half armored, half awake, but the killers were gone. Ghosts in Lannister gold. Jon stood in the center of the chaos, face grim, cloak soaked through. He knelt beside the last body, a boy of barely 15, slit throat, left to bleed in the mud. "They're probing us," Davos said behind him, "seeing how fast we bleed." "No," Jon replied, "they're sending a message." And it wasn't just to him, it was to her, because Cersei Lannister had not died beneath the Red Keep. Not entirely. She'd clawed her way out with fractured bones and a shattered army, but she'd kept her rage. And now, with Daenerys gone and Westeros in chaos, she moved like a shadow through the power vacuum, striking where the realm least expected her. Direct address. No way she survived, and now Cersei's playing the long game, not with armies but with knives in the dark, and she's not after Jon, she's after Sansa. Inside the war tent, the atmosphere had changed. Sansa sat at the head of the strategy table, flanked by Stark bannermen, Lords of the Vale, and Tully riders. A new alliance, one forged not by blood but by shared fear. Fear of the South, of the void Daenerys left behind, and of what might rise in her place. Ned stood nearby, arms crossed, silent but watchful. He'd seen this kind of war before, the kind that starts in the shadows before spilling into the streets. And Sansa. She was already moving pieces. "I've sent word to the Martells," she told the table, "and the Baratheon boy still holds Storm's End. If we move quickly, we can form a majority across 5 kingdoms." "And if they refuse?" Lord Royce asked. Sansa didn't blink. "Then we make them regret it," but not everyone in the room was with her. Jon watched from the edge of the tent, arms folded. He hadn't spoken in hours, not since the bodies were found, not since Arya's raven arrived, bearing word of an ambush near the Vale. "Lannister steel, silent arrows, no survivors." "They're testing your claim," Jon finally said, "and they're not going to stop." Sansa met his gaze. "Then let them come. I'm done kneeling to ghosts." Direct address. And just like that, it's civil war all over again. Stark versus Lannister. But this time the battlefield is loyalty, and the cost might be blood thicker than water. That night, Sansa and Jon walked alone beneath the broken towers of Harrenhal. Rain fell in sheets. Ghost followed silently behind. "You don't trust me," Sansa said. "I trust your heart," Jon replied, "but not your ambition." "Is that so bad?" she asked. "To want something better than what we've been given, than what we've survived?" Jon turned toward her. "Not if it doesn't cost us everything." She stared at him for a long time. "And what if I told you I wasn't doing this for a crown? Then what are you doing it for?" "For us," she said. "For the North. For the ones who never got a choice." Direct address. She means it. Sansa doesn't want power for herself. Not like Cersei, not like Daenerys. But here's the problem. Westeros doesn't care about good intentions. It devours them. While they spoke, the trap was already being set. South of Harrenhal, in a ruined monastery beneath a cliff, Cersei sat surrounded by mercenaries and loyalists who had refused to die for dragons. The remnants of the Golden Company, exiled Tyrell bannermen, even a few Ironborn hungry for chaos. "You don't win wars with honor," she whispered to her newest ally. "You win them with silence, with betrayal." Across from her, sipping from a tarnished goblet, sat a man cloaked in black, eyes shadowed, hands scarred. "You promised gold," he said. "You promised blood," Cersei smiled. "And I always deliver." She passed him a scroll. On it, Sansa Stark's seal. Forged, doctored, an alliance with the Martells, claiming Jon Snow had ordered Daenerys' assassination to take the throne for himself. "By the time they read this in Oldtown," Cersei said, "Westeros will believe the wolves are turning on each other." Direct address. Oh my God, she's not just fighting the Starks. She's framing them, playing them against each other. This isn't war, it's sabotage, and someone's about to fall for it. By morning, a raven reached Oldtown. By afternoon, the Citadel voted to open an inquiry into Jon Snow's actions, not his claim, but his crimes. War crimes. Regicide. And the ripple spread like poison. Storm's End paused its support. The Reach went quiet. The Riverlands began to fracture. Sansa saw it immediately. "We've been outplayed," she hissed, crumpling the second Raven's letter in her hand. "She's turning them against you." Jon said nothing. He didn't need to. His silence said enough. Later that night, Ned approached Jon alone by the fire. "She's forcing your hand," the old wolf said. "You either deny your blood or take the throne and prove them right." Jon stared into the flames. "If I take the throne, I lose myself." "Maybe," Ned said. "But if you don't, you might lose her." He meant Sansa, and Jon knew it, because ambition, once unleashed, doesn't wait. And Sansa, calm, composed, calculating, had begun drawing a line. Not against Jon, but away from him. Direct address. The cracks are here, and no one's ready for what they mean. Because next, someone close to Jon makes a move. That feels a hell of a lot like betrayal. That night, a hooded rider slipped away from the camp. They carried a scroll. It bore Jon Snow's seal, and it was headed straight to King's Landing. The rider didn't stop. Through rain, through wind, through haunted woods and shattered fields, they rode. One seal, one name, one betrayal, and behind them, a war teetered on the edge of explosion. At Harrenhal, dawn broke hard and cold. Jon stood atop the battlements, the world below wrapped in mist. Ghost lingered at his side as if sensing what no man dared say aloud. Something had shifted. Something had been set in motion. He didn't know yet about the Raven. Didn't know who had sent it. But he felt it. Like winter, betrayal never arrived loudly. It crept in, breathless and cold. In the war tent, Sansa was already at the table, parchment scattered before her. The letter had reached Oldtown, and the High Septon had issued a formal summons for Jon Snow. Not as a prince, not as a hero, as an accused regicide. Jon entered, face unreadable. "You've heard," Sansa looked up. "I have. And? We have 3 options," she said flatly. "Ignore it and look guilty. Go south and risk being taken, or crown me first," Jon finished. She didn't deny it. Direct address. That's it. The moment we've all been waiting for. Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen's, is one signature away from being king. And the worst part? He might not have a choice anymore. Ned Stark stood in the corner. He'd watched his children grow, suffer, lead. He'd watched kings burn the world and queens bleed it dry. Now, his own blood sat on the edge of power and ruin. "You take that crown," Ned said carefully, "and you'll lose every piece of yourself you've tried to keep." Jon didn't look at him. "Then maybe I was never meant to keep them." Arya returned that evening, mud-caked and silent, but her news was worse than expected. "The letter to the Citadel was forged," she said. "Cersei's handwriting. Lannister paper, delivered by a man in Stark armor." "Do we know who?" Sansa asked almost too quickly. Arya's eyes narrowed. "No, but they had access to our seals, our words." And for the first time, she looked at Sansa. Silence. Thick and sharp. Direct address. "Wait. Is Arya saying what we think she's saying? Did Sansa betray Jon? Did she set him up to force him onto the throne?" "Oh, my God." Jon stood between them. "I don't believe it," he said softly. Not her. But Ned said nothing. His silence was a wound. Sansa stood, spine straight. "If I wanted you to take the throne, Jon, I would have asked. I wouldn't have framed you." Arya stepped closer. "Would you?" And then Arya placed a small scroll on the table. "Intercepted last night," she said. "Addressed to the Martells, same handwriting, same seal." Jon picked it up. The letter read, "Aegon will not yield. We must act before he forces our hand. Support my claim, and the North will be yours in trade. Signed, Sansa Stark, Lady of Winterfell." Jon looked up, expression dead. "Sansa?" She didn't deny it. "I didn't send it," she said quietly. "But I didn't stop it either." Direct address. Holy. Sansa let the lie happen. She didn't frame Jon, but she let others do it. She played the game. She broke the one rule Stark children swore by: don't lie. And now, there's no going back. Jon left the tent without another word. That night, he walked to the old Godswood tree planted in the ruins of Harrenhal. He fell to his knees, soaked in storm, praying to gods he didn't believe in. Ghost sat beside him. Ned approached slowly. "You know what you must do," Ned said. Jon shook his head. "I was never meant to be king, but you were meant to end the war." And so he did. 2 days later, all the banners gathered at the Field of Ashes, the site of the final meeting between every living lord and lady of Westeros. Jon stood before them all. Sansa, Arya, Samwell, Davos, Brienne, Yara, Robin, Gendry, the Martells, even Tyrion, broken but watching. "I did not come here to rule," Jon said. "I came here to stop the killing, but that war doesn't end with dragons. It ends when we break the cycle that forged them." He looked across the field. "No more crowns, murmurs, shock, chaos. I renounce my name," he said. "Not Aegon, not Snow, not Stark, just Jon." Then he turned to Sansa. "The North is yours, but Westeros chooses its ruler together. Let the lords vote, let the people decide, and let my name be forgotten." Direct address. He did it. He gave it up. Jon Snow just broke the game. And in doing so, he won it. Sansa stepped forward. Her voice didn't shake. "I will rule the North, as its own kingdom, but not the realm." And she looked across the crowd. "Brienne of Tarth, you were never born for power, but you were born for honor." Brienne blinked. "What?" "I nominate you." And in silence, one by one, the heads nodded. The first true vote in Westeros history was cast, and the Lady of Tarth became the first elected queen. Not by blood, by choice. Epilogue. Arya sailed west, the sea her home now. Sansa ruled the north, strong and just, her crown heavy but earned. Brienne rebuilt King's Landing with justice as her foundation, and Jon Snow, he vanished into the wilderness. Some say he sailed past the wall, some say he walked into the snows and never returned. But in the woods, on quiet nights, some still see a direwolf, and a man with eyes like fire and ice, watching, guarding, gone. But never forgotten. Direct address. And that's it. The Game of Thrones is over, not with a dragon, not with fire, but with choice, with sacrifice, with Stark blood. Let me know in the comments. Did Jon make the right choice, or did Westeros lose its only true king?